Wouldn't tell me the time. You good? All right. Call the City of Staples City Council meeting to order and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started with the approval of tonight's agenda. So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mary and a second by Doug. Discussion. Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 3 is our consent calendar, which is minutes of the previous meeting and payment of bills.
So moved.
Motion by Ron.
I'll second.
Second by John. Any discussion? Not hearing any. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 4 is to consider the final reading and adoption of ordinance 540, which pertains to mobile food unit licensing. Food. Some raw food.
I was just gonna say, in your packet is, ordinance 540. We worked on this for quite a long time, planning and zoning. A couple of months ago, brought it to the council. Its first reading for second reading and adoption.
Okay. Make a motion to adopt ordinance 540.
Okay.
I'll second it, or did you second it, Roy?
Motion by Doug, and we'll go with Mary. I heard more from Mary than I did Roy. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that motion carried. And then item number 5 is to consider engagement of Carlson SV for the 2022 audit services for the city of Staples.
So in your packet is a copy of the engagement letter that we have with them. As you recall, last year was the first year with Carlson SB. They made at that time considered basically a 3-year proposal. Steps up a little bit each year. And so it's basically includes a single audit for expenditure of federal funds, wastewater plant, and also airport projects. So I would recommend approval of the engagement letter with them. They're good to work with, and the other proposals that we received were a lot higher.
So when they put in here, we've identified the following significant risks of material misstatement as a part of our audit planning. What can we do about lack of segregation of duties other than hire more people? You know,
That's really about it. I mean, we've had that in our audit report every year for probably forever.
yeah.
It's in there. It's a matter of, if you receive money, and somebody else will receive, if somebody else will, it's not realistic. I think what Dean was here to explain that.
Yeah, but I'm surprised that when it's something that occurs year after year, that they have to keep, I mean, even in their engagement letter, gracious. He said there wasn't a whole lot you could do about it.
I talked to Phil a little bit about it, and he basically said just exactly what you said, is that it's been that way for years, and it's something that they have to put in there though, or have to disclose. It just maybe more of an awareness thing than anything, probably you can't just hire.
But it's in the audit report, so I don't understand why it has to be in the letter of engagement.
I didn't, did I get a motion on this yet?
No, I don't think so.
I'll make a Motion for the approval of Carlson SV for the 2022 audit.
Second.
Okay, motion by John, second by Doug. More discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item number 6 is the committee reports, Park and Rec.
Get to it here, Park and Rec Board met on Tuesday, October 11th. And, talked a little bit about the upcoming sales tax referendum. Also, Lacey passed around a card. We did, get the treadmill delivered and installed, that we used the donation, the Pat Ward Memorial, donation towards that treadmill, circulated a thank you card for Donna and family. So I believe that was delivered. Right. So just want to again thank the Miller family. That was a long time dedicated user of the facilities. Talked about the winter schedule at the community center. Talked also about John's Lawn Care and the Wilson Park installation of irrigation, which I'm happy to report has started finally. Pipes are in the ground. Reported that 9 remaining boulevard trees for tree grates were planted, and we've also ordered 20 more that we'll be utilizing next spring for basically infill. John Morgan's gone around and done inventory showing where we need them. So, decorative fence areas, that was an item that was brought up at the previous meeting, and basically we came to the conclusion the best way to deal with those was to tear everything out and put mulch in and go with potted plants during the summer. Easier to maintain and keep control of. So you guys will now clean those out and put mulch in. 2 campers are taking advantage of the winter storage option out at Our Lake. That was the end of the meeting. So lots of year-end wrap-up stuff.
Any questions for Gerald? Or Lacey, yes. All right, thank you guys. I guess we're moving through this quickly, open forum.
Yeah, I have a question here. As I travel around and talk to people, I've had people ask me, if this referendum doesn't pass, does that mean the community center will be closing? And I guess I didn't really know the answer to that for sure, but I thought that it didn't mean that. But I felt that probably these problems have been there for many years, and I didn't think that if it didn't pass, that it wouldn't, it would cause immediate closure anyway of the building. So I don't know, maybe you can shed some light on that, Gerald.
Well, I don't, that ultimately would be a decision that the council makes. I don't think it's it's a definite thing. The question will come in, if it doesn't pass, are we willing to levy the dollars necessary to make the improvements over time? Boiler goes down a month from now. We want to spend the money to fix the boiler. It might be kind of one of those, death by 1,000 cuts type thing. But we've been doing that. As you recall, in 2020, we spent the money, fixed the roof, done some building envelope type stuff, did bathrooms and some flooring and some of that kind of stuff. The big ticket items are obviously HVAC and air handling systems for the pool, using the boiler. I'm sitting here, I'm not going to say, that my recommendation would be to close it, but I think it's going to be a decision that, very similar to the community center meeting that we had here a couple of years ago, where sat down and looked at what needs to be done, how do we want to approach
Cause that, what did you say that would generate about a year?
120,000-ish. That depends on where taxable sales are at.
Right. Okay, okay.
And I think, I'll say, when it passes, what you're doing is a revenue bond, where we're gonna get the dollars up front and be able to do all the work and then enjoy it while the bond is being paid back over the next 20, 25 years.
Okay.
Yeah. Open forum, does anybody else have anything? Yeah.
I was just kind of curious if, because this is the first time I've ever done anything like this, how we have the snow removal, at the beginning of October, that we enforce the snow removal parking. I was just wondering if it would be possible to just maybe the first 14 days, just issue warnings instead of tickets.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a police, I mean, I think a lot of times they do, I guess, I don't know, I can't.
October, I thought.
Back in the day, we didn't take it till November 1st, I think that was, or at least 2 weeks for sure, but I thought it was, I don't know.
I guess I haven't never heard about that as far as I go.
As of right now, it's tickets on the beginning of October.
Is that correct, Chris?
Oh, that's changed then. Because when we first instituted it, it was the month of October was to get people acclimated to that they needed even odd nights. And so they put a warning on there. So I don't know when that changed. We'd have to ask Missy that, I suppose. But I would recommend we go back to October, it'd be a warning, not a ticket, until November 1st.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's a,
I mean, I don't know that,
The reason we do it in October, by the way, is to be able to get rid of leaves in the gutters.
Yes, the street sweeping.
Yeah.
But, I think, having a policy that we only do warnings until a certain date, it's like not even having.
yeah, I would agree.
We're talking $10 parking ticket.
No, absolutely.
You get a parking ticket in Fargo or St. Cloud, it hurts a lot more.
Yeah, no, I get it. I was just, for me, it was just like, you make a mistake, I think at the beginning of the month, like when that snow stuff starts going, I understand the whole purpose of it, but like, I feel like it would be good for the community, because sometimes not everybody is on the police department page and looking in the newspaper, and sometimes we're all busy doing our own things, and it would just be kind of a courtesy, and it's just all I was. And I think $10 is nothing really, and other cities are much more. So I was just a recommendation as somebody from the community.
Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else, anything? I want to just bring up something. I was approached by Janet Kiley at the Landmark Inn, and she had asked, and she came to me because she is on planning and zoning, and so it didn't feel appropriate to bring it right to that board. But she had asked if the council would consider, and then planning and zoning to consider maybe looking at another option in her zoning. Right now, she is operating under a home occupation permit. And back in '08, we looked at, I think we looked hard into rezoning, and then I'm looking at Doug, because I know he was part of the planning and zoning then too. Then we looked into a zoning amendment and settled on the home occupation. And so I said, yes, I would bring it to the council and ask if the council would want to have that discussion a little, excuse me, a little bit deeper. It's not a council, we would have to go to P&Z, for P&Z.
You should go to planning and zoning.
Yeah, but like I said, she was asking me because she didn't feel appropriate being on that board to bring it up as a board member. So I said, yes, I would just ask the council if they'd be willing to have that discussion and then next to P and Z. So I don't know if there's any, if you'd be interested in having that discussion on an agenda, future agenda or not.
It's a hard one because she's just across the street.
Well, and part of her property is zoned commercial, right?
Across the street.
Yeah,
Across the street.
Parking lot across the street.
Yeah, so she's got, part of her property is and part of her property isn't.
And we also have, I go back and forth. I mean, I think there's options, there's other options. There's not one that right now I would, but I think we also have 14 years of history of what has occurred there, as well, on top of, where she's located and all that kind of thing. So she is, if we would consider looking at that again, or have P and Z look at it again, so.
Is her interest in when she sells it, that the next owner could continue?
I think that's part of it, she did have it listed, she pulled it off the market, she's living there, gonna try to make a go. It was kind of the COVID thing that kind of, that business that she was operating there was not a good, didn't work for her for a couple of years. She seems, like I said, I haven't talked to her in a long time. This is the first time I talked to her. She had called me. But she seemed very kind of all in again and wants to, and there was a group, I think, was it Friday I went there? Friday. And the scrapbooking group that's been there for years, because I remember 3 years ago, I was out eating and she was out with them and she introduced me to all these gals, but they were there. They come and spend the weekend and go out and, go to the restaurants and that kind of thing while there's, a dozen women or so. So, that's what she wants to continue, that type of thing. And I think that's what she's thinking, because there is some discussion, is that home occupation permit.
Permanent, or is it
Yeah,
based on?
that's one. I don't think anybody's really kind of determined if that stays with the property or with the owner.
It goes with when the owner sells.
So,
We recommended we send it back to the
Planning and zoning.
zoning as a council.
And then have them bring a recommendation to
Yeah,
us.
they bring a recommendation to us.
Sounds right.
I just said I would bring it forward, so I'm good with.
We can do that? We need a motion to do that, or we can just do a consensus?
Or do you want to do
No,
further?
we can do it, and it kind of depends on what direction, if we're talking rezoning, that's one issue. If we're talking a zoning amendment, I know back in '08, there seemed to be some support both at the council and planning and zoning to at least explore an amendment to the R1, allowing, retreat center or event center or something like that with a conditional use permit. And then there's the home occupation one that they ultimately came to. I don't know how that evolved behind the scenes. I wasn't, involved with it at that time, but everything ultimately, regardless of where it's initiated, goes to planning and zoning, to hold public hearings and all that kind of stuff.
So that would be the only parcel that if we decided, or their recommendation to us was to rezone it, that would be the only parcel there, or would they do that whole area?
And I don't think that's, personally, I don't think rezoning is the way to go on that, because it is largely residential, if not zoning land use around that. And that was an issue that I think maybe you brought that up back at that time. But I think the zoning, the R1 ordinance language, is something that would be worth exploring, because you do have some controls, put controls on that with the conditional use permit. Whether it's parking requirements or, hours of operation or that type of thing. Where if you rezone it, now anything that's a B1 permitted use can happen in
And that's what I thought you were talking about.
But
Spots.
regardless of which of those options, planning and zoning would be the ones to, do a public hearing and make a recommendation to the city council. Council doesn't necessarily have to do what planning and zoning says, but they're the planning commission that makes the recommendation.
Do you need anything more then, or is that, or do you need a motion or whatever, just? Alright. Alrighty, if no one else has anything to say in open forum, we'll go to city administrator's report.
Just a couple of different things, and we handed some of these out at, EDA earlier tonight, so those of you that were at EDA can get one table in front of you, but, the 7-year report thing is a document that Melissa put together, basically, going back through, minutes, going back through building permit, applications, a lot of good information, about the projects that have been happening here over the last several years. The aerial photos on here, last week I clicked on 2008 and was showing a photo of an area. That road didn't used to be there. That kind of, and so I started going through on both COD and what GIS, and, identifying project areas, including, either 2008 or 2009, and then 2020, 21, side by side on here. And it's, kind of an interesting way to present it. We've talked about a lot of these projects over the years, but then move on to the next ones and kind of forget some of them, forget how that road was, up by Summit Avenue, that baseball fields, it was a cart path going over. The area where City Hall, Casey's, Ernie's, Finger Lake, all that stuff, so just tried to go on, put just plain aerial photos together, so that people can see it. Not everybody's been around or been paying attention to a lot of the good development and stuff that has been going on here in the state. So just wanted to share that with you guys, and want more copies, let me know. That's all I have, unless there's questions.
Questions for Gerald?
Move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion by Roy and second by Ron to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?